Ich möchte das gerne aufnehmen, was er gesagt hat, zu dieses positive Denken und ein bisschen in die Zukunft schauen, denn das ist ein Motto, das wir uns auch ein bisschen zu Herzen nehmen wollen in den kommenden 2 Tagen. Natürlich, wir haben viele Herausforderungen, wir stehen vor Problemen, wir sind in einer Krise, aber wir wollen trotz allem auch nicht vergessen, nach vorne zu schauen und vielleicht auch das eine oder andere Positive in dieser Krise auch noch zu thematisieren. Und ein lustiges Nebenprodukt dieser Krise, das wird eigentlich viel zu wenig angesprochen. Natürlich, es gibt viele, die unter dieser Krise leiden, viele, die seit Ausbruch von Covid-19 ein bisschen schlechtere Tage verleben, aber wir wollen nicht vergessen, es gibt ja auch Profiteure der Krise. Wir haben jemanden für Sie.
At first I was afraid, I was petrified. I didn't get why Mom was suddenly always inside. My daily naps were now cut short and sneaking on your bed was done. There's no more barking at the mailman, what's a dog supposed to do for fun? But now you're home, and it's pretty fun. We played fetch for 7 hours in the backyard in the sun. I get belly rubs and treats, I never have to hold my pee. I don't know what a pandemic is, but it sure is good for me. So let's go, let's walk out the door.
Ja, so geht das noch weiter und weiter und weiter. Die Hunde, die Haustiere, die gehören wirklich ein bisschen zu den Profiteuren dieser Krise. Und warum zeige ich Ihnen dieses Video und warum bringt mich dieses Video zu unserem ersten Gast? Unser erster Gast, der, wenn wir schon bei Walk the Line sind, der hat wahrscheinlich die kürzeste Line zu walken, bis er hierher kommt. Er ist Fluglinie ziemlich genau 6 Kilometer von hier entfernt. Wir haben den Chairman von Nestle als unseren Begrüßungsredner, als den ersten Referenten hier auf der Bühne. Und Nestle, weltgrößter Nahrungskonzern, hat natürlich auch unter der Krise gelitten, aber, und da kommen wir wieder zurück zu den Hunden und den Katzen und den Haustieren, da lief es unglaublich gut bei Nestle. Plus 12,5% in diesem Jahr wurden mehr Nahrungsmittel für Tiere abgesetzt. Was lernen wir daraus? Die Tiere sind uns näher, als wir vielleicht manchmal denken, und die Krise kann noch so groß sein, da wird offenbar nicht gespart. Wir freuen uns auf ein Eröffnungsreferat, das uns vielleicht ein bisschen auch den Boden setzt für die nächsten 2 Tage. Und wir freuen uns auf einen Mann, der seit 40 Jahren schon bei Nestle tätig ist und die eine oder andere Krise dort auch gesehen und gemeistert hat. Und vielleicht können wir das eine oder andere lernen. So please welcome with me on stage, Paul Bulcke.
Because you're mine, I walk the line.
Vielen Dank. Mesdames et Messieurs, meine Damen und Herren, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. Thank you for the kind invitation to speak here today. We meet in a very special context. We are living through the first global pandemic in over 100 years. The coronavirus has spread to every part of the world. And in this context, I'm personally delighted that we are able to meet physically. Of course, with all the necessary precautions in place, we are not yet in a post-COVID world, and it remains essential that we continue to be cautious and responsible. I've been through many crises in my 40-year career, but I have never, ever seen anything like this. I expect it is the same for many of you here today. The immediate economic impact has been more severe than anything we have seen since at least the Second World War. The crisis is global, it is systemic, and it is deeply societal. And furthermore, it is still not clear when we will see a sustained recovery. I do believe it will take time to recover fully. In the meantime, the global economic recovery will be fragmented and constrained. And yet, despite all this, I retain a high degree of optimism. I have been deeply impressed by the reaction of the people and institutions here in Switzerland, be it health workers, be it small and medium-sized companies, local, regional, and national level authorities, employees, parents, and children. I believe that the pandemic has demonstrated again the strength of Switzerland and its institutions, its culture, its people, and its companies, big and small. I say this in spite of some understandable tensions between different parts of society, between the Confederation and the cantons. These are very normal in an open society. Switzerland, its society and its economy has proven and are proving to be resilient, to be responsive, to be agile. They have maintained and remained pragmatic, confident, and reliable. This is really my message today. We need to embrace these qualities and, most importantly, to nurture them going forward so that Switzerland as a country and Switzerland's businesses, big and small again, remain successful and competitive. With this framing, let me share a few reflections on where we are today and where we may be going. In these times, we all find ourselves facing difficult and uneasy questions. The responses will be very different for each of us, depending on your own specific and very granular circumstances and realities. We must each find our own way to survive as entities with a purpose that remains the highest priority. From a Nestlé perspective, the COVID-19 pandemic has impacted every aspect of our lives. The needs and priorities of our employees, consumers, customers, and suppliers here in Switzerland and in the rest of the world. Nestlé's immediate and ongoing response has been very clear. I call it the SAS response: safety, action, and solidarity. First, safety. We must keep our people safe. The health and well-being of our people, their families, and our partners at large is of utmost importance. First, safety. Second, action. We must assure the continued supply of essential food and beverages to consumers. This is why we exist and what we need to do. That is what we know to do best. Third, we must demonstrate solidarity. We must have empathy in these difficult moments with the communities that we work in, empathy with the broader society, to help where we can. We are therefore, for example, assisting our business partners through financial and in-kind support. At the same time, we must think about the future, an ambiguous and uncertain future, indeed. A future that is going to be more complex, making it much more difficult to devise the right strategies and actions. We have seen many changes since the start of the pandemic. The transformation of the working environment was the most obvious change. It remains to be seen how much of this now working mode will stay with us. How should we distinguish between changes that are there to stay and those that are just temporary? And as a starting point, I think we can point to trends that were already clearly there before the crisis, but which the pandemic has accelerated. First, the fourth industrial revolution. For example, travel restrictions has boosted the use of augmented reality to support our factories in other countries. E-commerce has become the new norm in many other sectors than just the electronics or clothing industry. Affordability is another point. Value for money will be even more important and key going forward, especially with the recession that is coming to us. Health and healthier lives have come even more to the forefront. Safety in the workplace, but also in public spaces, is top of mind for all of us. And then this point of regionalization and localization are in fashion again, also as a strategy to build resilience and shorter supply chains. All these changes are all there to stay. They may play out in different ways, but the direction of travel is very clear. And over and above all these trends stands the long-term challenge of building a sustainable and environmentally friendly economy. On this, we should not be complacent. This responsibility will not go away. And even if we are rightly focusing on stimulating the economy, we must not lose sight of long-term threats: climate change, water scarcity, deforestation, biodiversity loss, and land degradation. I think it is time to give more attention to the unthinkable. We must not wait for regulations to make us act, but make sure we are properly embedding these long-term threats into our strategy and everyday actions. It is, after all, in our interest that communities thrive and resources remain available for our children in the future. Now, what about the change that will be temporary? The clearest one for me relates to our social interaction. As human beings, we need social contact. We need dialogue. We need to share emotions. Lockdowns have made many of our social interactions impossible, or at least more difficult. While it may take some time, I'm convinced that many of our social habits, such as eating out, traveling, attending sport events, will return in due time. But where does this leave us as business leaders? And the first is flexibility, agility, and speed. These matter more than ever. This plays into the hands of nimble entities that can innovate and adjust quickly to new circumstances, that can embrace emerging trends, that can reinvent themselves. And a decentralized and empowered organization can be very agile, independent of size. Second point is, in an uncertain and ambiguous world, we will need to be increasingly explicit about purpose, core values and principles. Speed and agility, without these, will only lead to more chaos. What do we believe in? Why are we doing what we are doing? How are we going about our business? Each of us has to have very clear views and answers on these questions, and to be very explicit on them. In my view, leadership will be increasingly linked with the capacity to judge and to do what is right. This is based on a good understanding of principles and values and of the complex context we are living in. Third, we are more aware than ever of the need to strengthen our resilience. This will mean many different things to different companies, and each will need to find its own interpretation. Each will have to take away its own learnings. For some, this will be about moderate leverage of balance sheets and healthy cash flows. For others, it will be about supply chain diversification. A fourth point, the pandemic shows us how important it is to continue to define strategy and actions for the long term, even as short-term pressures dominates our lives permanently. Investment and innovation, which are necessary to generate sustainable growth and which are the main drivers of the company's success, require long-term thinking and commitments. A fifth point is companies do not operate in a vacuum. Policy stability and predictability provided by governments and authorities are more necessary than ever before. In closing, I would like to highlight three key dimensions to this crisis that I believe make it exceptional. The first one, this crisis will linger for a while. We are not just facing an economic recession. This is much deeper. It's a much deeper crisis. Financially, it has required exceptional measures. But beyond that, this crisis is mentally deep. There is a fundamentally different dimension to this crisis, and addressing it will require a different approach. We should not underestimate the impact of this, now and in the future. And second, the pandemic has highlighted the importance of interdependence of our world today. I cannot stress this enough. First is interdependence within the country, between the economy and the society. The fact is that companies are societal actors, deeply embedded in the communities in which they are present. We have now seen firsthand how the two are connected. COVID-19 has put a strong social lens on corporate actions. In my mind, you cannot have a successful company in a society that is not doing well. Nor can a society thrive or flourish when the economy is unhealthy. It goes both ways. Let me also be clear on a very important point. The protection of human rights and the environment here and in emerging markets, is an integral part of corporate responsibility. We believe and are committed in building a sustainable economy everywhere, together with local people, governments and NGOs. The intention of the so-called Responsible Business Initiative are good. Unfortunately, the initiative is not the right way to go. It declares companies guilty until they can prove their innocence. The initiative now wants to make Swiss companies liable for the behavior of almost their entire business network and environment. It steers up more uncertainty than it provides solutions. Relevant solutions need to be found on the ground, there where you are working. And we want to focus on our actions there, where we can be part of local development. They will not come out of Swiss courts. A second type of interdependence is the kind we find between countries. The crisis has led to call for localization, self-sufficiency, protectionism. But our world today is so integrated that, as we saw in the first days of the pandemic, it is disruptive to put up more barriers. Moreover, many of the challenges that we face, including pandemics, climate change, or food insecurity, can only truly be addressed through coordination and agreements across countries. Collaboration instead of confrontations, so to say. And finally, this crisis has truly brought to the surface what really matters for us as individuals, as communities, and as a society. I believe that many of the good and solid virtues that we hold here in Switzerland have become more relevant. These include hard working and a pragmatic solution-oriented mindset. They include self-responsibility and respect, long-term thinking. They include keeping perspective and thinking in context, looking for and seizing opportunities, innovating permanently, and also maintaining solidarity, not just at home, but also internationally. That is what Switzerland is about. We must be aware of them and value these virtues day by day. They are what enables us all, big and small and medium-sized firms, to flourish. They are what have made Switzerland so successful as a business location and as a society as a whole. We have strong tradition of dialogue in Switzerland, dialogue between all social partners, dialogue that is direct, dialogue that takes place at all levels of society, local, regional, and national. This provides a solid common ground of which to look for and work towards solutions to our economic and social challenges ahead. This is linked with that here in Switzerland, we don't claim a future, we work for one. And because of this, I feel very confident in circling back to my feeling of optimism that I expressed at the start of my talk. The road ahead is not an easy one. It never was. There are many challenges still to overcome, but I strongly believe that Switzerland will emerge stronger, not weaker, from this current crisis. The Swiss Economic Forum is an excellent opportunity to demonstrate the unique Swiss spirit and approach. We are not looking for polarizing discussions, which can only be counterproductive. We are coming here together, big and small, to talk to one another, to learn from one another, to find a common way forward. I truly applaud the organizers and new participants for your determination in bringing us here together today. And with this, I wish you all a very successful event, and thank you for your attention. Thank you very much.
Paul Bulcke, thank you very much. If I can ask you to take a seat in here, we have time for a couple more questions. Thank you very much for an uplifting speech and quite an optimistic speech, if I may say so. You talked about a lot of things that are important at the moment. Resilience is one of them, collaboration, cooperation as well. One thing that brings me back to the dog we've seen in the beginning is diversification as well. Of course, Nestle, and you kind of alluded to it as well, the company is going into different sectors. I mean, it's been years, but health is something very important. We have different kind of food sectors as well. In what regard did that diversification help you during the crisis?
Well, diversification, with the diversification, you have some risk spread. At the end of the day, we are in many, many countries. We are in different categories. We are very decentralized. We have a lot of decision-making in the markets or countries or communities we are living in. We have relatively short supply chains. So there's a little bit of a natural hedge through the category diversification we're in and also the geographic diversification. Another diversification we have is that we have something like 100 nationalities here. So there's a little bit of different ways of seeing things that just adds to the quality of our decision making. So I would say the diversification we have and is part of it. But you don't need to have diversification under your roof. By linking up, by partnering, by having suppliers working with you or looking for solutions, the diversification is to be found in the societal environment you're living in with the partners you have. That's an indirect diversification.
You're a truly global company, and I think in more than 190 countries in the world. If we look at the current crisis now, and you know the world very well, you've worked for Nestle all over the world as well, aren't you afraid that this crisis might broaden the gap between us and the more fragile countries in which you are operating as well? And what can you do to kind of lower that, that difference?
I think one of the biggest problems that over time you're going to see from this pandemic is that the developed countries, they're putting quite a lot of money to restart their economies, to help, to absorb the problem, etc., which is good, has to be done. What does that mean is that the more vulnerable countries in development that have, that money is not going to flow there. So everybody is a little bit shooting first your own country or your. So I do see that very many developing countries are going to suffer. And they're going to have a step back somewhere. But we're going to see also part of the 700-800 million people that we brought into middle class. Some of them are going to shift back into certain poverty. What can companies do is stay. Be there, stay. I can use the example. We're still in Venezuela with five factories, 2,500 people on the payroll, thousands of people working with us and for us. And that in the framing of what we are as a company with our principles and all that, but we stay. And we don't stay for financial reasons or short term. We stay because we have commitment to our people, we have commitment to the communities, we produce products for the consumers, etc. We are somewhere committed to our past there in that country. We are there in a good and slechten side, in the good and bad times.
So that's a clear commitment.
That is what companies should do. Yeah. Continue to be part of these countries in spite of all and being part of their reality and their development. And I think that is what we are doing.
Which brings me to a point you talked about as well, the corporate responsibility. And you talked, of course, about the important vote we're going to have in November about the COVID initiative, the business initiative regarding responsibility. You said it might be a good idea, but maybe not as practical. You are, however, for the counter suggestion of the Swiss government, right?
I am for companies that are responsible, that do care about human rights, and that do care about the environment. That's what I'm for. And this initiative, I'm sure it's well-intentioned. They want to take care and have better taking care of human rights and environment. That is exactly, we want to do, me personally and the company. But the initiative is the wrong way. It puts companies in a permanent, they're always somewhere, they have to prove their innocence permanently. The reversal of proof is something that is well-intentioned maybe, but you're in a permanent legal uncertainty. you're going to have to organize tremendous amount of resources into that defending part. So instead of using these resources and really doing what you best do, which is being part of a community and develop with that community so that that community can thrive. The initiative links whoever is, by far or close, linked with your existence, your supply chain. You're liable for that. Now that's, look, we have 600,000 farmers, 150,000 suppliers. We are working with them. We have a code for suppliers. We are auditing them, etc. But whatever can be said of whatever and whoever there, we are liable. And then you have judges in Switzerland who are going to have to judge realities somewhere in, I don't know where, in Africa. They have to make a judgment on that. So I rather say, look, human rights and environment is forged, is worked upon in the places where we operate. In these countries, it's not done in the courts here in Switzerland.
What does that mean for the future? Because, of course, it's probably the case that big companies like Nestle are facing legal challenges should the initiative go through. Should it go through, let me ask you one blunt question. Will Nestle remain in Switzerland?
Oh, come on, I'm not going to answer that. Switzerland is our country. We have our roots here. I spoke about the values of Switzerland. Mm-hmm. These are our values too, so it's all there. And starting threatening, are we going to leave and all, it's not adding to the real discussion, which is how can we, as companies from Switzerland, and you say multinational, it's not multinationals. This is initiative, it's all companies, small, etc. Whoever you're linked with, or whatever you import somewhere, indirect or direct, you're liable. And and nobody has to prove what they say. You have to prove that you're innocent on what they say. It's well-intentioned, but I do believe it's going to be counterproductive, because why would you then engage in a country that may be possibly risky? Why would we stay in a country like Venezuela? Because everybody can somewhere say, hey, what are you doing there? You should not, you should, etc. Live up to your principles, your values, your purpose. Be consequent in the whole world and have that very high, human rights and environment. And that's going to forge this dimension. And it's going to help you build, you develop.
Final question. We've run out of time. You've talked last year at an event at a business school to young leaders and to young chairmen of Switzerland, and you said there, it's a very challenging job. And we live in an ambiguous world, and you have to make tough decisions. And how to make tough decisions is something you have to learn, probably, and something you have to live every day. With this crisis in mind, which will go on for another who knows how long, are you afraid?
No, but I'm aware. Mm-hmm. So never be afraid is proof of stupidity and ignorance. So we should be very aware. Afraid, no. You know why? Because I believe in the strength of humanity and people and finding ways out. You see, for example, we have been very early on in this crisis to say, hey, no confinement internally, no travel, very early on, half through February. Mm-hmm. We stopped all travel. But then we saw how our people, but together with other people, outside partners, rewire the creativity, etc. This is a big challenge. And this is not new. We had challenges in the past. Humanity has had so many challenges. Look, we always think we are living in the worst of times. No, think about world wars and all that. So let's join in and be creative and help each other out here through this crisis. And I feel, and I mentioned it, that somewhere this crisis is going to make some awarenesses and some values getting to the surface that I really support and am very enthusiastic about. So afraid? No. I would be afraid if I would not know the strength of people and the creativity of people, and also the will to be part of the solution, not part of the problem. So no, I'm confident, but very aware of the challenges ahead, but confident.
But you know what? Let's take that hopeful thought for the next 2 days. Thank you very much for your visit.
And my pleasure.
Bulcke.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much.